Welcome back. Today's topic is wholesalers. Wholesalers are merchant middlemen that actually sell to retailers and other merchants for resale or business use. Or at least that's the definition that Merriam-Webster says online. Now, what that actually means is a wholesaler essentially is, let's say, the person or the business or the entity in the middle of a transaction that essentially facilitates the transaction between a buyer and a seller, right? Now, for those services, they are actually compensated, but unlike the sense of, let's say, a broker within, let's say, a stock market deal or a real estate broker brokering a deal between, let's say, an ultimate end buyer and ultimate end seller, what a wholesaler does is they actually control some interest within the deal. So they actually allow it to happen. Now, what they actually have in their possession is what's called equitable interest. Now, what that essentially represents is their stake within the deal. So they have some element of control, let's say within a contract or the deal passing along between the buyer and the seller. And for that, they actually get compensated. Now, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about what equitable interest is and how it works and what you can actually do with it, I highly recommend you take a look at the Monopoly Life, one of the programs available on Escape the Monopoly. There's more information pertaining to equitable interest and how that can actually be used, and it teaches it within the game of Monopoly. So if you want to learn more about that, that's where you can find that information. But continuing forward, this is our word of the day, wholesale, because what wholesalers do is they both buy and they sell. It's not just one side or the other. They actually fulfill both sides of that equation. And in doing that, they actually assign their rights within some type of contract from which, for their acquisition, when they actually buy something, they have control of that contract, and then they can assign their rights and responsibilities to the ultimate end buyer. So they buy something from someone selling an item or whatever that actually is. They actually control it, and then essentially they resell that to someone else. Now, this can happen in a multitude of different ways, but today we're going to focus on real estate and how that actually happens within a real estate market. Now, why actually wholesale in the first place? Well, the first piece is that someone within a transaction or someone within the market identifies a deal that they know another merchant wants. And so, in particular, wholesalers, when they are working within the real estate industry, they're looking out for rehabbers. So remember, rehabbers actually fix homes up. They are visionaries for distressed real estate. But they're usually working on that distressed real estate, so they don't necessarily have the time to actually find that next property they need to fix up. So that's where wholesalers actually fit in. They jump into a transaction, identifying that, hey, you know what, my friend the rehabber, they're going to love this deal. It's a distressed property. They can fix it up. And so instead of them using their time to actually find the properties, that's what the wholesaler uses their time for. So they identify those deals for the rehabbers. Now, in order to do that, they have to get control of that particular property. They have to get it under contract. So usually if you hear about real estate, you have to have a property under contract before you can actually control it. So when they have this property under contract, then they can start to market that property to the rehabbers, establishing a price, all the roles and responsibilities that are essentially going to fit in within that transaction. Again, pretty much all their rights and responsibilities that they signed on the contract with the seller. That's what essentially the wholesaler is offering to the rehabber. And in doing this, they actually create value for the rehabber. And in some cases, when you wholesale something of value and you bring that value to someone else, you're literally kind of creating money or creating value out of thin air. So if you ever heard that, oh, you can't create money out of thin air, yes, you can. And wholesaling is essentially one of the ways to actually do that. Now, what would you actually wholesale? Well, we're talking about real estate, so obviously we're talking about property or land or something of value that a rehabber or a new builder or whoever in the real estate industry would actually value within their particular trade. So in order to create a wholesale, you need something of value to start with. So something that is in demand, and usually the greater the value, the higher the demand. Works the same in any market. And so the next piece is that you not only need something of value, you need to control whatever it is of value. So we talked about equitable interest. That's what you want to have. That's essentially how you get compensated off of realizing that equitable interest in the closing of a transaction. Now that can be either tangible or intangible. In real estate, we're mostly thinking of items, but this could also be information. Again, it depends on what it is that you actually have of value. But as long as that can actually be, as long as that is within your control, that's what you're actually able to wholesale. And then last but not least, you need something that can be legally transferred. So remember, when we're doing transactions, we want them to be legal. So we need to do everything by the book. So in order to be transferable within whatever local laws, federal laws that you actually have, whatever you are exchanging of value needs to be legally transferred from one party to another. And when that actually happens, that's when you get paid. Now, how do you actually wholesale? Well, I walked through the steps of what you actually need to have in place, but what you actually need to wholesale is you need to have a ratified contract. So if you don't already have a template of a contract that you're actually going to use for wholesaling, that's something that you actually need in order to wholesale. You want to do it the right way, which means you want to make sure you have all the right language within whatever contracts you actually use. Next, you need both a seller and an end buyer. So not only whatever you're purchasing, let's say from a seller, or whatever you're holding the contract for, you also need the end buyer that also wants that. And you need to have all of that established, right? So without those pieces, you can't close a transaction as a wholesaler. So you need a seller and you need that ultimate end buyer. You're essentially playing matchmaker between the seller who wants to sell something of value, the buyer who wants that thing of value. You've identified the deal, you've put it together, and that's essentially your stake within the deal. And then last but not least, you need that transaction to complete so that you can get paid, right? So all of those pieces are needed in order to successfully execute a wholesale. Now, the one thing you may not have been exposed to is that you can wholesale, but there are a couple different ways you can do it. And it actually depends on your mindset or how you actually think about wholesaling. Now, in one case, you can wholesale something, but you can pay taxes on it depending on how you actually do it. And then there's another group of folks that when they wholesale something, they don't pay any taxes whatsoever. Now, you might do the exact same things, but the way in which you do it, the contracts you use, the entities you use, all those pieces fit together to determine if you're going to pay taxes on it or if it's going to be tax-free. Now, if you ask me, that's a pretty big proposition, considering that almost half of what we actually earn in our lives, or what an employee earns within their lives, you're paying about 50% tax. So pretty much half of anything that you make is going back out to taxes. So if you can kind of cut that piece out, that could be huge for your bottom line, right? So to give an example of that, I remember it was a couple years ago. It was when Mitt Romney was running against, who was Mitt Romney running against? Was that Barack Obama? It might have been Barack Obama. And the question that popped up as far as tax records. And there was a magical Roth IRA that Mitt Romney had that was worth something like $100 million. So if you're not familiar with retirement accounts, a Roth IRA is very, very powerful, and that is it is a retirement account that can grow without bounds. And Mitt Romney had $100 million in it. And most folks are scratching their heads because they're like, how did he do it? How did he do it? How did he do it? Well, wouldn't you like to know how he did it? Because he actually used a process along the lines of wholesaling to essentially wholesale a business in his Roth IRA. And he didn't pay any taxes on it, right? And it's judgment proof. So if you didn't know what judgment proof meant, that meant if he got sued and lost every single cent that he had, no one could touch his Roth IRA, right? That's huge. So when I'm talking about mindset, I'm talking about thinking on that level as far as when you're actually doing a wholesale and doing things tax-free. Now, if you're interested in learning more about mindset and changing your mindset as a wholesaler, I encourage you to text ESCAPE to 571-777-0461. But if you're just looking to wholesale something, if you have real estate, you're looking to wholesale that, you're looking to find a buyer, I might actually be a buyer for you. So in that case, feel free to text me at text buy, B-U-Y, to 571-777-0461. But that's probably more for rehabbers. You probably want to sell me something, right? So in that case, just substitute the word sell. So text sell, S-E-L-L, to 571-777-0461. Again, one more time, if you're looking to sell real estate, if you have something under contract, you're looking to find a buyer, text SELL to 571-777-0461. I hope this lesson was useful for you, regardless of you being a wholesaler or not. If you're looking to learn a little bit more about how you can actually wholesale, again, check out the Monopoly Life on escapethemonopoly.com. And again, if you're looking to change that mindset, text ESCAPE, ESCAPE to 571-777-0461. All right. Hope you enjoyed and hope to catch you on the next lesson. Bye.